And good evening, and welcome to the Public Safety Committee meeting, Wednesday, June 11th. My name is Dwayne Halliburton. I represent the 2nd District as well as the chairman for the committee. To my right, I have our councilman at large, Dan Washington, Miles Tolliver, Kenneth Withington. We have our 5th District representative, Linda Barnes Caldwell, our president from the 1st District, Lord Latham, and to my left, we have our representative from the 4th District, Mayor Ivy, and our administrative attorney, Renzel Williams. Today, we're going to be talking about CPO 2025-39, an ordinance establishing weapons use and discharge regulations in the city of Gary, Lake County, Indiana, prescribing penalties for violations hereof, as well as procedures and policy for same, and all matter related thereto, sponsored by Lord Latham, President of the Common Council. Administration, ready to present?
Good evening.
Good evening, Attorney Morgan.
So this ordinance, which was actually initiated by our Honorable Council President, Councilperson Latham, the purpose of this is obviously to prohibit discharging firearms in the city. The chief has some thoughts about it, especially when we get to Section 2. But, you know, many cities have on their books already that you're prohibited from, you know, shooting firearms in the city, because what legitimate reason, if you're not a police officer, would you have for doing such a thing? We thought that there was an ordinance that addressed this, couldn't find one. And so, you know, we wrote this and went through a few changes. But we think it's important for public safety that we explicitly say that it's illegal for people to discharge their firearms in the city. We also know that we've heard that in some of our natural areas, whether they're designated as, national park or just some of our open areas where, things are, the forested areas, the people sometimes hunt in those areas. And, the danger of that is a stray bullet. Any one of us could catch a stray bullet. That's not okay. So with that, we can go through point by point if you want to, or we can get, I think we should get Chief Cannon's feelings on this ordinance and that kind of thing.
Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for entertaining me. I would just like to say I'm in support of this ordinance. In review of it, that is a line item in Section 2, Part 3, where it talks about duly licensed hunters that I believe that possibly could be removed. The reason why is because I would question the authority of a duly licensed hunter who would be providing that authority and what goes along with that, which can include training, areas of responsibility that they will be allowed to go into. I believe that the federal law and other laws of the land basically would be able to dictate that, and we take this out, we will have a standalone ordinance that will be able to be monitored in a better fashion. I will say that the ordinance in its totality is in alignment with other ordinances in this area with towns and cities, municipalities as such. Even Lake County has adopted an ordinance for unincorporated areas that is very similar. Just like Council has stated, we don't want a person to see a game or animal that would be considered to be huntable, like turkeys or deer, and then just get out of their vehicle and start to pursue in some type of hunting fashion, whether it's in an urban area, non-urban area in the city limits of the Gary, Indiana. My personal experience, I do live here. I have seen wild turkeys in a bunch of parts of the city of Gary that is very uncommon, and also deer. So I would just wouldn't want accident or some other situation to happen, or for our community to be affected in a negative fashion when it comes to the aspect of public safety.
Any questions from the council?
Just one. Can we specify what a weapon is in the ordinance by chance? Maybe I bypassed it.
In a previous draft of this, we did specify that. We can.
Section 1.
Section 1, okay.
Section 2.
It's in Section 1, probably the second sentence.
Yeah, previously, we also included crossbows in that definition,
Yeah, I was,
because people do, hunt with
Crossbows.
crossbows. And that's another thing that you don't want, your kids to, or yourself to be in danger of being hit by an arrow from a crossbow. So if it pleases the council, we can add that back in.
that's,
Oh, it wasn't just crossbow. I'll speak personally for myself. If you go to
Okay.
my house,
All right.
I have 22s that are very high powered.
Okay.
That wouldn't be considered a weapon by this definition because they're air projectiles.
Okay.
And I was just saying, nowadays you have some pellet guns that use air that can drop a human in a heartbeat. So that was just something I was curious if there are any limitations with pellet guns.
Okay, so we had a pretty exhaustive list in an earlier version. So I can either send you all that language, I can get my laptop and read it to you if you want to go over it now. I can send that language to your counsel, your attorney, and we can come up with the final version of this. If we rush, we could have it ready by Tuesday. So what's your desire?
I mean, it's up to the council. I was just, from my point of
Yeah,
view.
so I would totally agree with you.
I would like to have that added into it so we won't have no misconstrue on what a weapon is defined. So let's put that in there.
All right, we'll make sure it's in there. I'll send the language right away, and hopefully we can get a final version of this as soon as,
Thank you.
before Tuesday, I hope.
Mr. Chair.
Question? President?
Thank you, Councilman Halliburton. I wanted to give a little background on where it came from, and I wanted to make sure we were clear on Section 3. The Executive Director of the Little Calumet River Basin Development Commissioner, Dan Repay, is actually here if he wants to give any further commentary. But we took a tour of the levees along the Little Calumet River, and a problem is that folks are going down there to hunt while we have staff and volunteers helping to maintain the levees. The idea was we needed a sign that said, no hunting, no discharging of firearms, and that's when we realized we couldn't get a sign because we didn't have a law. And so that's what this law was for. So I want to make sure the original intent is protected with Section 3. I'm not exactly sure how to do that. I know Chief Cannon talked about striking it altogether, but I want to make sure that would solve the problem.
Just to make sure, I was talking about Section 2, item number 3.
I'm sorry, Section 2, number 3. Thank you. And Chief Cannon is also right. We have even people in our neighborhood that hunt squirrels. And they may be or may not be actually here at the table, 2 people down from me. So I think it's important that we do address hunting in a way that protects us.
The reason why I said Section 2, item number 3, so that was given an exemption, and I was saying to remove the exemption for that.
So just so we're clear, you do want people to be able to hunt things like squirrels, or you don't want?
No. Not with a firearm.
Well, the DNR squirrel season, that's a different topic. But to your point, as the chief addressed, that's covered by a different statute.
Environmentalist versus economist.
Well, so, and you do want a prohibition against air rifles and air projectiles, okay. Crossbows as well? Okay.
Any more questions from the council?
Mr. Chair,
Attorney Renzo Williams?
I understand that in Section 2, the chief is speaking specifically to number 3. Madam Corporation Counsel, what I'm concerned about is a supremacy clause issue, and I'm sure that's probably what you indicated earlier. If in fact there is a state law that authorizes hunting in a particular area, or if there's an agency that authorizes hunting, period, would we have the authority to usurp that?
So Indiana DNR licenses hunters if they have a specific law that says you can hunt in name an area around town, DNR area around town, then we couldn't usurp that, but I also couldn't find a law on point for that. And I have I tell too many long stories. I'm gonna try to make this short that illustrates why I agree with the chief that we should be as restrictive as we can be. So about a decade ago, my mother, my dear mother, who's not with us anymore, was driving near a DNR area in East Chicago along Kennedy. Somebody shot out her back windows. The former chief, who was then, I can't remember, he was commander or something at the time, thought it was somebody hunting deer in the DNR area. So if she had been, a split second slower driving, it wouldn't have shot out her back windows, it would have shot her. And so I think, number one, well, I know I couldn't find anything on point that said these areas in Gary are designated by the DNR as, you can hunt in them. Number one. Number two, I could have lost my mom a decade ago by somebody who was doing something they shouldn't have been in DNR. And at the time, East Chicago did have a similar ordinance on point that there is no hunting in the city. And unfortunately, we've experienced too much of, humans hunting other people.
Sure.
So I couldn't find anything on point that
Okay,
said.
that suffices for me. I was just concerned of us conflicting with any state. But if the
Right.
Corporation Counsel has indicated she's done the research, then
And,
I have no issue.
and to piggyback on what the chief said, is if there is a state or federal law that supersedes this, well then, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I just couldn't find any. So.
Any more questions from the council?
Mr. Chair,
Councilman Ivy?
I'd like to know, with the holiday rapidly approaching next month, if this ordinance is to pass, how will we communicate to the public the consequences of firing the firearms?
As anticipating that this will be passed before we get to the Independence Day holiday, we'll immediately have our communications department to put it out on all our social media. So that's how we would communicate it, is we'd immediately do public announcements about it. And again, we won't wait until it's passed. If it looks like it's gonna pass, we'll have them start working on it, by the end of this week. So.
Any more questions?
And then, what's going to be the consequence?
So the announcement will say that firing guns is prohibited in the city of Gary, hunting is prohibited in the city of Gary, and the consequences for a first offense, they're listed at the bottom of page 2. The fines range from $250,000 up to $2,500. The $2,500 you'd get at a fifth offense.
So are we going to enforce that? Chief, are we going to send our guys looking for those people?
Yeah, anytime we get a shots fired call or anything like that, we investigate. What I will say is this is not a one-all type of situation. These matters that when we investigate these matters, they could lead into a criminal matter. There could be a person arrested for either criminal recklessness, criminal mischief, or some other type of crime. This is basically geared for a person that might be shooting for some type of recreational use or something like that, or they believe it to be sport or action that they can actually do. And then if that's the case and there's no other violation of state statute, then more than likely they will be documented and fined. And it'll be a ticket, something similar to like a code violation that would go through the criminal court, the court through the Gary court system.
Mr. Chair.
Attorney Williams?
Yeah, again, the chief is correct. The absolutely shooting of a weapon in itself is a Class B misdemeanor.
Yes.
That's criminal recklessness. And if it results into bodily injury, it's a Class 6 felony. So there's already laws on the books that would prohibit that. This would simply do exactly what he said, limit the use of it in the city if it does not result in injury. But the fact of firing a weapon in and of itself is already a Class B misdemeanor under state statute.
If I may, Councilman? address that?
I'm sorry.
I wanted to address that real quick.
Sure,
So,
go ahead, Chief.
With the attorney, I understand the spirit of what he's saying. In the part of being, somebody being charged with criminal recklessness, there has to be an aspect of somebody could be hurt, not just shooting, right? So it could be a person in an area that has set up some type of target practice that's unauthorized or something like that. We have had areas of the city before where we got called to, and when we get there, there's a bunch of shell casings. These places might be remote or something like that, but there wasn't something that we believe that could be prosecuted on the level of criminal recklessness as far as the projectile being able to reach another person and possibly cause some type of injury. Sometimes those are kind of difficult to prove in court. So that person's, if we have found persons that were there in some type of recreational use, and we don't feel like there was a issue with some type of public safety issue, then that possibly will be when this ordinance will take effect, and that person can be fined for discharging a firearm within the city limits.
Any more questions, council? Well, thank you, Attorney Morgan. Chief Cannon? Stand by. Councilman Ivy?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to say that I have seen Mr. Repay on Clark Road getting out of his vehicle, doing his good work on the Little Calumet River Basin, and I would hate for something to happen to my friend. And I would just one last time ask if he would like to come up and say a few words.
Thank you, friend. Thank you for listening to this, and the chief is right by trying to exempt out the hunters. We have hunters on our property all the time, and we shoo them away, and what happens is they make a deal with the adjacent landowner, which could be 50 feet from our levees, and they're still shooting, and the landowner, I guess, would be someone that you guys are all familiar with that doesn't pay a lot of taxes in this community, and he gets a cash deal, and they start firing weapons across. So it's not only us, it's the recreation component that we do, the crossbows and everything else. Where we get difficulty is the conservation police are saying, well, they're inside the Little Cal River and that's state property. Well, we can't really do anything. But if you say you can't discharge a firearm where they don't allow in Hammond, Munster, and Highland, then all those hunters that try to sneak through our property are no longer able to do that. And it is dangerous out there, especially during hunting season. I mean, I don't hunt, my brothers hunt, but I wear different colors when hunting season happens because I don't want to be confused for anything coming out of anywhere, so. But other than that, I appreciate it very much, sponsorship and having this hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Repay. Any more questions from the council?
Thank you, Mr. Repay. Thank you for all your hard work.
Have any citizens who'd like to make a comment? See, it's not.
Mr. Chairman, I just want
Councilman Washington.
because I'm not a hunter, what kind of livestock is out there that people are hunting? I know the chief talked
Mr.
about
Winston,
turkeys.
Mr. Winston, he can give you a thorough, what's out there.
We could talk about this earlier too between national-owned property and city-owned property. But in this area, Northwest Indiana is huge for game, deer, turkeys in this area, varmint, pretty big. I mean, we're the perfect water territory. So anywhere you have water, you can also have big game. That's one thing the city gear we don't capitalize on. I just throw it out there is tourism when it comes to hunters and fishermen. We do not capitalize on a market that's multi-billion in this area. It's insane. I'll throw this on the record since we're being recorded. We need Lake Ada back. Thank you.
If I can, again, speak from experience, so my grandfather, lived on 15th and Wallace forever. Before Maryville was incorporated, they used to go out and hunt in unincorporated Gary, and they'd hunt deer, they'd hunt rabbits, they'd hunt squirrels, all that kind of thing, so.
I think you're making everyone up here interested and become a hunter out here. Orange caps. Are there any more questions from the council?
Eat plants.
Any more questions? Well, thank you very much.
Councilwoman Latham wants to see more plants
Plants.
and more arborvitaes and
Yes.
perennials out there.
Yes. Well, thank you again, Attorney Morgan, Chief Cannon,
All right, thank you.
Mr. Repay. The final hearing will be Our public hearing will be Tuesday, June 17th at 6 p.m. here at the Gary Sanitary District. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.
We here Tuesday?
No, if they get the air work, it's not a,
That's what he just said.
yeah, but it might change.
You going to Dana's? Yeah, I'm about to hop over there real quick.
Yes, sir, I'm on my way. Start at the MBIPs.